What's up, it's Randall, and today I'm going to talk about 5 things that I hate about my 2024 Dodge Charger Daytona EV. As you can see, I have it behind me. It is vinyl wrap blue. It has some customization to it, some moderate customization done to it. You know, as models are going to start coming available, we're going to start doing more stuff to this vehicle. However, I feel like Dodge could have done better with this car in its stock form. So I'm going to do a quick video, discuss a few things that I feel like could be done better, changed, refined, and we'll see if some of the other owners agree, disagree, or have their own thoughts as well. So let's get to it. So we're gonna jump right into the video. The first area of improvement I feel like could have been this bezel that goes in the bumper right here. It's a vertical bezel. Looks like it could be utilized for like a fog light, for example, or cooling on the gas model, since it's gonna have twin turbos and gonna need a little bit more airflow, or it could even be a cooling duct for the braking system. On the previous models, a lot of these vents would be pass-through, which would mean they're functional. In the center, you have the shutters in here which open and close, and you do have a grill that's see-through. But right here, you have it fully closed off. So it's a non-functional grill, fully closed off. I feel like Dodge could have just went ahead and allowed for that grill to be open, give some additional cooling to the engine bay, braking system, and allow for room for future customization, which I'll get into later. Second thing, it's gonna be a love it or hate it thing on this vehicle. The Brembos on this vehicle, this is gonna be a Scat Pack Stage 2. It does have the larger brakes. As with all of these vehicles, if anyone's had like a Hellcat or SRT model, any model that comes with Brembos, you're gonna experience this. You're gonna have a bunch of brake dust. And so as you can see, this car was washed probably Sunday, today's Tuesday, and hasn't been driven too much, but it has brake dust all over the wheels. Once you drive it a time or two, you're gonna get brake dust all over the wheels. The Brembo brake pads do stop good, but as a byproduct of the compounds they use, it's gonna throw out brake dust. And so all the wheels are gonna be covered with brake dust. Do have the wheel ceramic coated, so that allows the brake dust to not stick as much, but you're still gonna have brake dust on the calipers, for example. And so if I stick my finger back here, probably haven't cleaned these in a while. So as you can see, I have a pretty good amount of brake dust coming off, so I'll have to make sure I address that the next time I wash this vehicle. But something you really can't avoid until you change the brake pads out. Popular modification we do is throw the power stops on there to prevent the brake pads from throwing as much dust, and it's been a good solution. So once we get the part number for what's needed for the Dodge Charger Daytona brake pads, we'll go ahead and get those swapped out. So second thing is definitely the brake pads. The third thing that I feel like could be done differently on this vehicle, I'm gonna skip right to the back and stay on the exterior. This vehicle is called a Dodge Charger Daytona EV. A lot of the hate that's come to this vehicle in particular has been because of using the Dodge Charger name. The original Dodge Charger was two-door. This is a two-door vehicle. The Charger as we know it, which came as the 6th gen, in its modern form, it was a 4-door vehicle. So it's going back to its roots with more of a retro look, which is more of the boxy front. You got the R-wing, you got the retro styling, which is pretty cool. But people are used to the 4-door Charger more so as a 2-door Charger. And of course, it's gonna have a gas engine. So I feel like some of the hate would be gone if they called this vehicle a Dodge Daytona and left off the Charger name. The electric vehicle could have been called the Dodge Daytona, and the 6-pack gas model could be called the Dodge Charger. So you have similar cars, different names, but they both gonna serve their different purposes, different crowds, different markets. Because if I'm a hardcore muscle car V8 guy and I'm tiptoeing into the smaller displacement realm, I may go for an inline 6. I'm probably not gonna go for an EV unless I'm, just wanna experiment and try something different. In my case, I'm a car guy that loves cars. And so I love them in all forms, whether it be a V8, haven't had a chance to own a V10 or a V12 engine, but whether it be a V8, possibly a V6 or an electric vehicle, if the car makes sense and it looks good, it's all about having a good ownership experience and being able to enjoy different cars in different settings. Every vehicle can be a tool and has a purpose. You're not gonna buy a Demon and go daily driving a Demon. Just like if you're getting a Scat Pack, you're not looking to go to the racetrack per se and run 7 seconds down the racetrack in its stock form on a quarter mile. Every car has a purpose, but for a daily driver, this is a balanced car in its stock form. And definitely when you juice it up, Scat Pack Stage 2, It's definitely a worthwhile offering from the Dodge family, given the fact that it's their first EV muscle car, and it actually looks like a muscle car. So they did a good job, but I feel like once again, if they called this vehicle the Dodge Charger Daytona, it would have been more of a hit and less of a matter of having to convince the market, meaning the customers, that whether it's a customer that wants to buy the vehicle or a customer that hesitant about the vehicle, having to convince the market this vehicle is worthwhile. Another thing, if you saw a couple of my earlier videos, I had a Daytona stripe back here. With it being the Dodge Charger Daytona, it also should come with a Daytona stripe. So whether it was called the Dodge Charger Daytona or a Dodge Daytona, being that it's a Daytona, it definitely needed to come with a Daytona stripe. Every other Daytona vehicle has come with a Daytona stripe, and a lot of them have vinyl on the hood and different things like that, but I feel like that was a missed area. That was definitely something that Dodge missed, was the Daytona stripe, given that it has a Daytona name. So the Daytona stripe definitely should have been called a Dodge Daytona instead of a Dodge Charger. You have the Brembos, the front grille, and also at the back of the vehicle, it has Daytona in the bumper. So you really can't tell, but if you look closely, you'll see it has Daytona embossed into the diffuser on the rear bumper. But nowhere on the car, and of course I debashed this vehicle, but nowhere on the car, like on the trunk or on the deck lid, is there a stock badge that tells you what kind of vehicle this is. So even if I light up the tail lights, you'll see it has a Dodge logo inside the tail lights, but there's nowhere that it says Dodge Charger or Dodge Daytona or anything else that you can see outside of it being embossed in that diffuser. So when I'm driving around, getting out the car, the first question that people are gonna ask is, what is this thing? Is it a Dodge Challenger? Is it a Dodge Charger? They're confused as to what the car is. You would have to assume that everyone's not up to speed to what's going on with the market. And one of the first to own these vehicles, people are going to be confused, whether it be cool to them or confusing. It's kind of like driving a spaceship. But the first question they always ask is, what the heck is this thing? A little bit better on the naming, probably some badging in the stock form will help out with the vehicle, because if you've seen one in the stock form, it'll have a Scat Pack badge right here. It'll say Scat Pack in Stage 2 on the fender. But all you know that it's a Scat Pack, and it doesn't say anything about a Challenger or a Charger. So this car really could be both, because the Challenger traditionally came in 2-door, Charger came in 4-door, so you can almost get confused if you don't know what kind of car it is. Once again, we have the grille, the brakes, the name of the car, Daytona stripe, and then for the fifth thing on the exterior, these windows, you have a frameless window on this car. And there isn't a door frame like it was on the 2015 Plus Chargers, or even all the Chargers. They all had frames around the doors. The Challengers didn't have frames around the windows because they were a 2-door likely, but even the 4-door, I believe, doesn't have a frame. The problem that I have with this is that, as you can see, the window drops down a little bit when you open and close it. But the problem that I have with the frameless look is that there is some wind noise that you can hear when you're driving in this vehicle. It's very quiet. The windows are actually double paned, I believe, and so if you look closely, if I can even get it to show on the camera, the glass is a little bit thicker than it would be on your standard models. What that means is you get a real quiet ride. It's almost like the vehicle's soundproof, but as a result, you can hear every little thing when you're riding. For me, I get wind noise kind of right here in this area. I'm not sure if anyone else has experienced that, but that's my only gripe, is that when I'm riding in silence, no radio on, not on a phone call, not doing anything that's gonna make any noise inside the vehicle, you kind of hear that wind whistling almost to the point to where you think the window's down. It does look cool. It gives it that sleek look all the way around, but I do get a little bit of wind noise from that area where the pillars would normally be at. Just have two more areas where I feel like Dodge could have did a little bit better job. The first is gonna be, when this vehicle came out, there weren't any weather mats, or there weren't any all-weather mats available for this vehicle. And with black carpet, I just vacuumed this car a couple days ago, but as you're getting in and out, the black carpet is gonna show every little bit of dirt, leaves, and debris that get in the vehicle. And having those slush mats available when the car was released would have been cool, because from day one, you would have been able to protect the carpet and keep your interior from, whether it be weather, rain, or different things like that. Granted that the car came out in wintertime as well. Having those slush mats has always been a good thing. And then the last thing that I feel like Dodge kind of dropped the ball on, it's a known issue, is gonna be these buttons on the center stack. We're gonna go ahead and start the vehicle up. And the thing about these buttons is that when you press them, you get tactile feedback, but it's very hard to, it's almost weird. It's like it's a button, but the buttons are semi-responsive, and so it's really hard to explain, but I feel like these buttons just feel cheap. You know, it's an $80,000 car, so we're not talking, back in the day, the Scat Packs were kind of starting in the low 30s, 40s maybe, depending on how they're optioned out. Daytona probably was a little bit more. This is an $80,000 vehicle, so this definitely just feels cheap all the way around. I feel like it should have had a gloss finish maybe, and been more of a touch button without having that click feedback, because when you push a button, when I'm pushing a button here, this whole thing is moving. It's basically one big button with buttons, with one big panel with buttons underneath. And so for whatever reason, they decided this was a good thing to have on here, I guess as a backup to having all on-screen controls. But for me, I feel like this is definitely gonna be something that needs to be addressed. I believe there's a TSB to where they replaced this panel out. But for it to be an $80,000 car, just to come out to have the whole dashboard taken apart, that kind of isn't a best case scenario. For me, it's not a big deal, of course. You just deal with it and work around it. But for someone that is kind of not really a car guy and doesn't have that same level of understanding of sometimes things go wrong, and sometimes you gotta take these cars apart to get to the issues and chase them down, they might be a little bit more upset to the point to where they just don't want to deal with these different things. That's just the area of improvement right here. They did a good job with the interior. You know, you got different modes on the screen and all that. We'll probably go over that later, but you got the buttons, you got the interior. The interior should have had the mats available from day one, but outside from that, everything else is pretty cool in here. But once again, this was just a quick video. A couple of things that I dislike about my 2024 Dodge Charger Daytona EV. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any other things you dislike about this vehicle and you actually own this vehicle, feel free to chime in. If you don't own this vehicle and you see a few areas of improvement, feel free to chime in as well. All feedback is welcome. It's a brand new platform, so it's gonna always be pros and cons, but I'm open to conversation. Definitely want to hear what others have to think and if they have the same experience that I have. But other than that, I definitely thank you all for watching. Appreciate your support. We'll keep it going. Peace.